Phone company's out here today putting new main line up or something. I don't know what they're doing. They're on every one of the poles out here. So the dogs are having a fine day barking at them. I got that lower cowling painted last night, and boy, it is just beautiful. Not a bug in it. Looks a heck of a lot better than the first time I tried it. And I decided I'm going to go ahead and paint this fuel tank cover. This goes over the left fuel tank. And you look down there on the bottom right side there, you can see how the paint's peeled off of it. It's been that way for a while, and I've been wanting to do something with that for a long time. So I'm going to take that out and put some paint stripper on it and strip the paint off of this side here. Got a little bit of blistering around a couple of the screw holes there from some corrosion. Clean that up. And then once I get that done, then I'll mix the paint up and paint both this and the upper cowling half. But I don't need to start mixing paint up for the upper cowling half until I get this one ready to go. I don't want to do it any more than I have to. I finally got that fuel tank cover for that left-hand fuel tank ready to paint. That took way longer than what I expected it to. I spent 2 days just getting that prepped up. I'd run out of my old paint stripper. I had my wife bring me home some new stuff. Well, the stuff is eco-friendly, and of course, like everything else new and reformulated and eco-friendly, it doesn't work near as good as what the good old eco-unfriendly stuff did. Well, I painted it on there, I put a plastic over it and left it sit out there for about 2 or 3 hours, and well, it almost did just about nothing. Well, I scraped off some paint and stuff and then put some more stripper on it and covered it up and let it sit overnight. Well, yesterday when I finally went out and took the cover off of it, it had lifted the paint enough where I could scrape it off, but I had to scrape every bit of it off. It took me a couple hours working on it. I got to be careful not to scrape the aluminum too much to get into the Alclad. And a little bit of corrosion out of some of the screw holes. Well, I took the Scotch-Brite pad on my die grinder and buffed those up and cleaned those up. Then I had kind of a hermaphrodite messed up monstrosity of a repair patch that I put on there. When I first got the airplane, I had to put an antenna on it for marine radio. The first time I put it on there, I put it in the wrong spot, so I had to move it. I didn't have the right tools and stuff at the time, and so I put a patch where I'd put that in there first, and it was pretty ugly. So I repaired that, and then I mixed up some body putty and filled in around it and stuff there. So that repair should just about disappear when we paint it. It's supposed to rain today, but I'll get this set up out there and see what I can do about hanging it up in the paint booth there and mixing up some primer and getting a coat of primer on it. I hung that fuel tank cover up in the little paint booth there. It's all ready to go now. I just need to wipe it down with some cleaner again, make sure it's clean, and then mix up some primer to prime it. Well, it's been pretty damp out here, humid out here the last few days, and it kind of overcast today. That paint booth has been outside here, and it's acted as a greenhouse. So there's a lot of moisture on the ceiling, on the roof of that, the ceiling of it, both inside and outside. And I tapped it a little bit, shaking it a little bit and stuff. The water drops down off of it, so that's not going to work to paint in. I went over and dug through my junk pile and dug out my exhaust fan and stuck in there. And there's an opening where that sticks out. Bugs can go in there, but they just should get sucked right into the fan and blown back out again. Be like a merry-go-round for them. That's not a certified paint booth fan or anything else. All it is an old squirrel cage fan that I got out of an old furnace, and I built the ducting out of some real thin straps of wood and some cardboard. But it's worked for 25 years or so now, so it's good enough for what I need. I've got that turned on in there, and the sun is cooking down on that building. So hopefully between the air circulating through there at the fan, and it's got a little bit of vibration on there, it's shaking the building just a little bit. Between that and the thermal energy of the sun on there, maybe that'll get dried out. I was hoping I'd get all this stuff all painted yellow today. We'll see whether that'll happen or not, but there's not much point in worrying about it till that thing gets dried out in there. I'll go up ahead and go mix up some primer and get ready to do the primer coat anyway. Well, I had my fuel tank cover ready to paint yesterday, but I couldn't get to it right away because moisture inside my paint booth. Drug my fan out here, plugged it in, and then shook all the water off the ceiling up there, let it down and let it dry out for a few hours. Well, I'd got a coat of primer on it yesterday. I was hoping to get it finished painting, but by the time I got the primer on it, it was getting kind of late, about 5 o'clock I think. And you gotta let it set for an hour before you put a top coat on it. I didn't want to mix the yellow up in several batches because I got top cowling and I'm going to paint my prop spinner again too, so I didn't want to mix up a whole bunch of different batches. So I let that thing sit out here overnight. And of course today we got the same problem with it. There's not near as much moisture in there as there was, but got a little bit in there. So I shook the water droplets off the ceiling there and put my fan in and got it running. It's a nice day today. It's not near as cloudy as it was yesterday. We're forecast to get maybe some thunder showers or something, but just a slight chance of showers. But it's hot today. It's well, 70 degrees already. So between waiting for water to dry and paint to cure and stuff like that, motorcycles are out here in this nice weather, Memorial Day weekend. Get them out maybe 3 or 4 times a year. So anyway, between painting stuff, I've been working on a couple other things. I had my son put the tracks on the Bobcat this morning so I could use it up here. We've got this spot up over here. This is kind of on the northwest side of our property. This was a heck of a mess up here when we bought the property. There's a stream that runs through right there, seasonal, part-time stream. It's dry right now, even though it's only May and we had all kinds of snow and rain and stuff. It only takes a day or two for it to dry up. Anyway, this side over here was a jungle when we got it. There were great big potholes in here, big stumps, lots of stumps, or well, they weren't stumps until I made them into stumps. They were trees like that, a hemlock right there. So we did a lot of work over here cutting those trees down. I milled most of them up with a chainsaw mill and made timbers for my little shop and boards for my little shop. That's what I made that out of. So this whole thing, like I said, was a big hole over here. Big holes, humps and holes and big stumps. Well, I spent a lot of work over here cutting brush out and cleaning it up, pulling the stumps out and burning them. We had burn piles over here for a week, so we would burn the big stumps. Anyway, like I said, this is a big hole. Well, this still isn't filled all the way over here yet, but when we put that rhubarb box in there, you could stand there and eyeball the rhubarb. It was just eye to eye with the stalks of rhubarb there. Now we got that filled in enough, you got to bend over to pick it. So I've taken a lot of the dirt out of places over there, like where behind the house, the cabin where the sawmill is, and up around the back of the house and stuff, and taken all that dirt out of there and leveled all that area out and rotted in over here. So the last little bit I did was digging out where we made that pad last year, the bank there, and I brought that out here and I've spread it out right here. That's right up almost to the edge of our property line there. I had a big high pile of it. So yesterday I came out here with the excavator and I worked on it a little bit. I had a tree right there in the way, right on the property line that was dead, this little dead hemlock here, and a big pile of dirt there. I've kind of spread it out and filling in over the edge there. See, that drops off about 8-10 feet right there, just past where the excavator's sitting. It used to come back this way. We've gradually been filling this in. So anyway, I knocked that hill down a little bit and I've just about got it down to grade, but I was having trouble with the excavator with that doing any more than what I did, so because the blade is fixed on it. Right now I want to get this leveled down so we can put our garden in there. We've got to move a raspberry patch, and Judy didn't have a garden last year because I had that all piled up and didn't have time to work on it. And we got a pile right there in the middle of that. That is what garden dirt that we'd made before, and then chicken manure, chicken leavings from out of the chicken pen. We'll mix that all up to make garden dirt with it. I've got to move it out of the way. But right now I'm waiting to get the excavator started. The battery on it is kaput. Well, that's a technical term. I don't know whether it applies to that excavator or not because that's a Japanese excavator. But anyway, the battery is dead on it, and I've got to jump it or charge it up every time I want to start the excavator up. And so I've got to charge it up a little bit more, and then I can get it started. And I want to come up here and move. These are slabs that I've cut over the last few years, yellow cedar slabs, and Judy has used those to make boxes for garden beds, and so we want to move those out of the way so I can get in here and grade this all down here, this dirt pile right here, and bring it in here and get it all graded nice and smooth. So anyway, that's what I'm working on between paint jobs. I'll get this excavator started, get this pile moved, and then by the time I do that, then the paint booth should be dried out enough that I can mix the paint up and put a coat of paint on the fuel tank cover, and we'll let it sit. It's got to sit for about an hour or so for it to harden up enough to move, and then I can do that top cowling and that prop spinner. That fuel tank cover and prop spinner are all done, and they're just gorgeous. The upper cowling is still in the paint shop, in the paint booth, and it looks really nice too, but I got another thing to do with it. I've got to put the flat black on the top of it. I finished those, the prop spinner and the upper cowling, yesterday evening. It takes a couple hours for that to harden up to be tape free, so you could tape it, put another color on it, and I just didn't want to take any chances on them, so I left them sit overnight. I'll go ahead and tape that top cowling up and mix up the flat black paint to finish it out, and then it'll be done. These two are both done. Well, the fuel tank cover is not quite done yet. I've got to put the antennas back on it, and then I've got a decal to put on it that goes around the fuel tank opening that gives the limitations on the fuel that goes in there. I taped off a section underneath that rear antenna mount so that it's bare aluminum underneath there. The rear mount is for the marine VHF antenna, and that needs a ground plane. So we want a good electrical contact between the ground on the antenna cable and the fuel tank cover itself, so that'll make a ground plane for the antenna. Now, I did mess up a little bit on that tank cover. On the back side of it there, I got some pretty good runs on it in the primer, but nobody will ever see that but me and whoever takes that off the next time, so it doesn't really matter. I turned the fan pattern on the paint sprayer to a horizontal instead of vertical to go up and paint the edges, and then I forgot that I had it, and when I went to the back to spray the primer on the back, so anyway I wound up getting too heavy a paint on there, and I realized what I did and changed it over and got it right, but the rest of it's good. Also had one bug get on this fuel tank cover. Got a pair of tweezers and pulled it out. I thought I was going to have bug tracks on it, but the paint flowed out into the bug track, and so it turned out okay. Well, anyway, they look a whole lot better than they did. Pretty. So I got to go turn the fan on in the paint booth, get the moisture out of there before I start messing with that, because it's the next new day, and it's still got condensation in there on that paint booth to get rid of before I start fooling with that top cowling. And since that's laying flat, it's going to be horizontal. Any moisture that came off of that ceiling would fall right down onto my paint. We don't want that to happen. Got the upper cowl painted with the flat black. Finally got done with that. I just pulled the tape off of it. Didn't want to wait too long because that yellow on there is still kind of green. Anyway, it's tack free right now, or dried to the touch, but I'm going to let it cure in here. Well, I undid my fan, so it's not running anymore. There's no point in having it going because all the overspray and the bugs and everything are no longer a factor. So I'm going to leave this closed in here with the sunshine the way it is. It's 75 degrees out here today, so it's probably a good 80 or 90 degrees in here in this little enclosure with the sunshine the way it is, so that'll help that stuff harden up a little bit more. Well, that finishes that up. I have to take those pins out of there. They put the welding rod in the hinges so that they wouldn't fill up the hinges with paint. So I'll have to take that out and put the door halves back on there, the doors back on there, and then we'll glue a little bit of cowl tape over there on that edge where the doors come down and rub on it, and some underneath the back side here where it goes up against the boot cowl. And this will be done. Oh, I've still got to put my Southco fasteners back in the door halves. Anyway, I think that looked pretty good. That'll be a lot nicer than having that yellow on the top. Gives a little bit of contrast, and it won't reflect as much. Now that's going to fade out some more, or flatten out some more as it cures. It goes on kind of shiny, but as it cures it flattens out some more. So anyway, that finishes up what I'm going to do on the airplane, except for putting stuff back together. I'm not in a big hurry right now until we get somebody here to do the inspection. So I'm going to go ahead and let that paint all cure before I do any fooling around with it. Make sure the paint's cured good and hard. So while I was working on painting, between painting, while I was letting it cure and other things, I was working up here a little bit. And I got this up here. I think it's pretty good. Well, I used the Bobcat with the blade on it to cut that down. Well, I used the bucket, of course, to move that pile of manure and garden dirt over into another pile. And then I used the Bobcat with the blade on it to cut that down so that it was pretty much flat. But the Bobcat is too heavy for it, even with the tracks on. That's really soft in there and mushy, and it was sinking down, making big holes in it. I did as much as I could with the Bobcat, and I got the little excavator over there and smoothed it out some more and kind of walked it in, but even that is a little bit too heavy there. Even that didn't get it as smooth as I would have liked to, so we've got some good hot dry weather coming for a few days, so maybe this will get dried out. But there seems like there's kind of a spring or something that comes up right in here. There was a big waller hole in there. It didn't have water running out of it, but it seems like it always stays wet right there. We'll see what happens, let that get dried out a little bit more, and then we should be able to smooth it out some more, but I think it looks pretty good so far. I moved all the lumber slabs and some logs over here against Judy's fence where she's got her garden going, and she's over here playing right now. She had the incubator going and hatched a bunch of chicks, and she tried to hatch some ducks, but the goose won't let the ducks breed. Every time the drakes jump on the hens, the goose goes over there and jumps on them. So she had a bunch of ducks eggs in the incubator, and only one of them hatched. So she's got that baby she's playing with. That little duckling thinks that's her mama, so she follows her all around the garden and watches her.
Come here, baby. Ready, baby? Let's go for a walk. Come on, let's go for a walk.
Little thing's growing like a weed. But she gets her out here, and
I have to run anymore. Oh, yeah, what's that? What's that big thing? Whoa, water in your pan. Yeah. It's so cute.